I have with me Captain CS Randhawa. He has flown a Boeing 77 flight for over 15 years. And very interestingly, he was also the former Deputy Chief Flight Inspector of DGCA. With his extensive knowledge and experience in the safety sector, what do you think, sir, could have led to such an incident?
In fact, today I visited parents of, knew Captain Sumit Sabharwal well because he was my junior. I had trained him earlier on the Airbus 310. And I went and met his old father. And he was not married, and he was very close to his father, and he was taking care of his aged father, who was about almost 89, 90 years old.
Okay.
So it was quite pain to meet his father in that devastated state because they were only one brother and sister.
Mm.
So this is as far as the family goes. I don't know the other crew members, the hostesses, and the first officer. Now, coming to the accident yesterday, this disaster took place within 34 seconds of takeoff.
Yeah.
Now, it's a 9-hour long flight, so it was carrying a lot of aviation turbine fuel, which is very, very highly inflammable as compared to petrol. So it must be around 70,000 liters of fuel.
Okay.
And now, what could be the reasons of this accident? These are all speculations. The first reason could be because Ahmedabad has been known to be bird-infested flying environment around the airport. I have been doing a lot of training flights in last 2 decades. I have done a lot of training flights in Ahmedabad, training flights, and when we used to do touch and goes. And we were always scared of the birds, whether it was on downwind, whether it was on final approach of the approach. So it is infested with birds. So the first thing which came to mind was that maybe it has had a bird strike. It ran into a couple of birds and both engines are flamed out.
Okay.
And the flame out, once the engines are flamed out, he has no height and he can't turn back. He has to crash land straight ahead.
Okay.
That is the first possibility. The second possibility is some fuel contamination due to water being present in the form of water, condensed water from the fuel tanks in the wings, contaminated with fuel. Because the aircraft came from Delhi, so when it flies at high altitudes, the wings become cold.
Okay.
And there is evaporation takes place in the condensation takes place. Sorry, in the wing tanks, and it causes cold soak, and some water gets added to the fuel. Now, when the refueling is done in an aircraft, the fuel is always checked by the engineer. A fuel sample is taken, they check for water contaminant and other contamination in the fuel. And if it is found to be okay, then only the fueling is continued.
Okay.
So the second reason could have been that one in 10 million chance that the water has gone along with the 2 engines, which is very, very rare, and it has, the engines are flamed out. And there was no time for an auto relay to take place, and the aircraft has crashed.
Okay.
The third possibility is when the aircraft, I have seen the video about 30, 40 times in a slow motion.
Okay.
Now, how the aircraft takes off is that once you start rolling for takeoff, and there is a speed called V1 speed, decision speed.
Okay.
Any failure takes place before that decision speed, the pilot rejects takeoff.
Oh, okay.
Above this speed, in case there is an engine failure, the aircraft is fully capable of going ahead and coming back for landing.
Okay.
Now, in case of an engine seizure. If one engine has seized, still on one engine, the aircraft is capable of coming back and landing because it's a land as soon as possible situation in case of one engine failure on two engine aircraft. So the aircraft has taken off as it seems. I saw the aircraft. There is no engine failure during the takeoff, no fire. Aircraft has taken off normally from the runway 23. Now, after the aircraft is taken off, the first action is that the co-pilot, he gives a call, positive climb. That means the aircraft has got airborne. He checks with the altimeter. The altimeter shows a positive climb and he gives that call positive climb. The captain then gives a call gear up. Apparently, the gear is not up because maybe they forgot. So now there are four forces which act on the aircraft. One is the lift, one is the weight, one is thrust, and one is drag. Now, the gear down causes a lot of drag.
Okay.
Now, thrust, it is compensating, like the thrust is there and it is compensating, wings are producing lift. And there are devices like spoilers, the trailing edge flaps, which in 787 you normally take off with flaps 5 and in performance limited airfields at flaps 15. So you take off normally flaps 5. So now when I've seen it very closely, I didn't find the flaps to be in the takeoff position because the aircraft wouldn't have gained more than 425 feet height. So the flaps seem to be up when the aircraft is crashed.
Okay.
Now, two things. As I said, firstly, the gear has not been taken up. Secondly, at 200 feet to 250 feet, the pilot takes the autopilot on. So once he's taken the autopilot on, he must have realized that the gear is still down. So he may have told the co-pilot, gear up. Now the lever of the gear is on the front panel. The flap lever is on the central pedestal. By mistake, it could have been pilot error that the co-pilot has taken the flaps up. Now, if the flaps are taken up at that stage at such a low height, there will be loss of lift and drag is increased because the gear is still down. So the aircraft will stall. Once the aircraft stalls, the height is so insufficient, aircraft will crash.
Okay.
Very high possibility of that happening because I saw the video, the gear remains down till crash. So the three possibilities I told you, one is that because of bird ingestion, the engines must have failed. Secondly, because of contamination, both engines have failed. The third one is that there is flaps inadvertently taken up and instead of gear, and it is caused loss of lift and aircraft has crashed.
Okay.
There is no question of a sabotage or a technical flaw in the aircraft before takeoff because after the engineer certifies the aircraft, the pilot in command, he signs the maintenance release accepting the aircraft.
Okay.
So the aircraft must be fully serviceable. And in the investigations now, what will follow is that it has been ordered from the Aircraft Investigation Board of India, which is under the Ministry of External Civil Affairs, Civil Aviation, and this will have a panel of people who will be carrying out the investigation.
Okay.
One
Sorry,
thing
if I may interrupt you a bit.
Yes.
The black box was recovered by AIB on Friday evening.
So
what is the significance of it, sir?
black box, actually, it's a loose term. People call it black box. Actually, it is called the Digital Flight Data Recorder, DFDR.
Okay.
It is orange in color. It's not even black.
Okay.
So there are two components. One is the DFDR, which captures a lot of data from the aircraft, the height, the speed, the engines monitoring, oil pressure, oil temperature, fuel temperature, control. What are the controls behaving? Elevators, ailerons, flaps, gear, speed brakes. So the plethora of data is recorded continuously by the DFDR, which has got about 25 hours of recording.
Okay.
And the second component is cockpit voice recorder. But what is happening in the cockpit? What talks were taking place? What is the talks with the ATC, with other aircraft? Any warnings which have come up in the aircraft? Any noise which has been felt? So all these data comes out of CVR. So
Okay.
the AIB is going to carry out this investigation which the government has ordered. And as a precursor, the government has also ordered, the DGCA has ordered that they are going to do the technical checks for all the Boeing 787 fleet, which is normally done by either the manufacturer or sometimes by the airlines when such a crash takes place, because this is the first crash of 787. The 777s have been flying since last 25 years, and 787s are flying since last 15 years, and they're very similar in nature, both the aircraft. Sorry, 777 have been flying since last 30 years. So, very similarities there between the two aircraft. Okay. So, I want to say is we are all presuming things, but only the investigation will be able to conclude that what has happened after the DFDR and the CVR are decoded.
Okay.
But my one request is there that whenever such inquiries are held, by the AIB, the experts, the pilot experts, are always missing in the inquiries.
Yeah.
So I want to take up, as a president of FIP, I want to take up this issue with the Minister of Civil Aviation, or maybe the Prime Minister, that it is high time that the experts, aviators, the pilots, should be involved in the investigation. There is a need to change, because all countries like the FAA in America, the CA in UK, EASA in Europe, they involve veteran pilots who have a lot of experience and investigation experience also, who become a very helpful tool in the investigations.
Okay. And sir, how much time do you reckon it would take for the black box data to be decoded?
Decoding should not take long, but they do not immediately reveal the results.
Okay.
Because they check other angles also. Technically, they check all the aircraft history, what snags it had. There are lots of other things which come to light, and they check all that, and then only they reveal. Otherwise, as far as the decoding of the DFDR and the CVR could be done in 3-4 days.
3-4 days, sir?
Yes.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay.
But they take time. They will not rush.
Okay. Captain, thank you so much for speaking with us. Very valid points you have raised. I hope it is taken note of. Thank you so much, sir.
Bye.
Bye.